Well, here we are. This is ShrimpNet number 10 for the season 2022-23. Thank you for listening to this, the Shrimps Trust podcast. Well, what a week. It's safe to say that we've got plenty to talk about, Joel. And joining myself and the lovely Mr. Shooter, I'm happy to say we have the co-chairman, who I usually introduce as the chief executive, but today I'll give him his proper title as co-chairman. Excellent timing. Welcome along, Rod. Thanks for coming on, Rod. You're our only guest today because we've got plenty to talk about. But first of all, we'll start with the main thing that we talk about on all of these podcasts is the football and our last game. A disappointing defeat at Accrington, Joel. Not the greatest of afternoons, didn't cover ourselves in glory. I think it's safe to say from a personal point of view that the first half was right up there with refelt in the shed roof until Arthur Nahua got sent off. And then obviously our best hope was probably clinging on for a 0-0 draw, but that never really looked likely. But I have to say the comedy moment, the own goal that got us back to one apiece. Well done, Cole. And we'll come to Cole a little bit later on, but your thoughts on Accrington, Joel?
Yeah, I agree. That first half was incredibly forgettable. I don't think either team really took much of a foothold. I know there was a header cleared off the line by Rawson, but it's a chance from a set piece, and while it's a chance, but it wasn't like Accrington were really cutting us open, and we weren't cutting them open either. It was a pretty attritional game. It's not one that's lived kind of like scarred onto my mind or anything, because it was quite dull. There was nothing really going on. I think Accrington's a tough place to go. Obviously, you want to see us create a few more chances. At the same time, we limited Accrington. We weren't being dominated or anything. It was quite even. And going in at half time, 0-0, it's been a pretty tight, scrappy half. Nobody's really given much quarter. You say, that's all right, local derby, nobody really wants to lose that one. So we go again in the second half, and then obviously we come to the Arthur Nahua red card. Obviously, I'm probably with a lot of Morecambe fans. I thought it was quite harsh. I think Arthur could maybe be accused of being a little bit careless with where his arm is, but at the end of the day, he's not gone in with excessive force. He's just jumped for a header, and he's not properly thrown himself in there. Really, he's just kind of floated himself up for it. And I know obviously the ref's not to know that, but he's not that kind of player, really, is he? And obviously there's been a bit of a furore from the Accrington players. I think it's a funny one where it's easy to kind of have a go at them, but at the same time, players from all clubs do that kind of thing, surround the ref, and it's up to the referee to be a bit more strong-minded and stand up to it. And in this occasion, the occasion's got the better of him a little bit, and he sent Arthur off, which is disappointing for what wasn't really an excessively forceful challenge. And then we're up against it in the second half. Again, I don't think, obviously Accrington were more on top and they had a bit more of the game. They weren't constantly cutting us open all the time. I thought we did all right considering we had 10 men.
Yeah.
Liam Gibson on the left wing. Then they get the goal. Just, eventually sometimes teams will break you down when they've got one extra man. It happens. We get a bit of a slice of fortune for that equaliser. It can't be denied, and it was a lot of fun watching that one go in and loop over the keeper.
But I have to say, and I'm clutching at straws, and yes, we lost 3-1 and we were down to 10 men and blah blah blah. But fair play to Derek. He went 4-3-2. He brought Cole on, and this is only my take on it, but Cole did more in that 20 minutes than he's done in the rest of the season for me, because he was battling and Cole hasn't been battling. And he obviously came on and thought, right, okay, somebody's had a word with him. I'm on the bench. I don't like it. And he put some effort in. And the simple fact that he was chasing that centre half for that through ball and he was pulling his shirt while he was doing it, which is, he made him stuff it over his own keeper. So that's credit. We got back into it because Derek went pardon my French, shit a bust at 1-0 down.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, look, it's always difficult to play these situations when it was 0-0. You don't really want to go too gung ho because you don't want to leave too much room at the back when you've got 10 men, but then when you're 1-0 down, you might as well just go for it. And putting Cole on was probably the right call. And well, it proved to be the right call because, like you say, I think you did well. You battled well. You did some nice layoffs, some nice touches, getting the ball under control up the pitch. And like you say, that while obviously it is fortunate in the way that a defender booted the ball over his own goalkeeper, he wouldn't have done that if Cole wasn't giving him a hard time.
Exactly.
So, we've got to give credit to that. And then obviously a bit of a soft free kick. I know there's a bit of a shirt tug in there, but a bit of a soft
I honestly thought, and I've said this, I said it at the time, I thought he was giving us the free kick.
I was at the opposite end. I couldn't really see in real time. I've watched it back, obviously, and it's borderline. It's a bit soft though, and then obviously when they get ahead that late on, it's very hard to kind of chase back. And they've gone and got the third goal. But yeah, I mean, we're down to 10 men. It was always going to be an uphill struggle. I think the team worked hard and gave a decent enough account of themselves. But when you're down to 10, sometimes it's not gonna be enough, and that's how it goes sometimes.
It's not fair at times, and it's as simple as that, isn't it? We appealed the red card. We weren't successful. I thought it was harsh, but that's the way it is. The free kick for the second goal, I thought was harsh. As I thought the two bookings before the sending off were pretty
Soft.
iffy. But and the ref set his stall out there. Look, he's the man in the middle. He's got to do his job, and I get all that. The free kick took a deflection on its way in, so very, very unfortunate there. And then poor old Dylan. I mean, it's down an assist almost, is that, because it was an underhit back pass, and it creases you, doesn't it? Absolutely creases. That was a draw in any other Saturday. That's a 0-0 or a 1-1, not a 3-1.
Well, it's funny because I was sat watching the sort of ITV Football League highlights as I always do. I record
fair
them.
play. That was it's a hell of a wait for them.
I record them, and myself and Callum, my eldest, sat and watched it on Sunday morning, and I was literally, because we were, as per usual, we were virtually last on, but like there was a procession of teams that we've played who the centre halves fell over, under it a back pass, goalie threw it in his own net every single game, and I was like, they don't do this against us. And then they showed our highlights, and I went, "Oh, we've just done it to ourselves." Because that was it. There was, it was that's every single game in League One last week. Somebody did an almighty cock up that led to a goal, and obviously,
in fairness, an Accrington player did do an almighty cock up.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And I said, well, it's funny because it's happened in every game, including ours, 2 hour, But then Dylan fell over, miss it a back pass, and it's just like, oh, nightmare, So, but that's what happens, isn't it? So you have to put that down as, I can take that, and I can take it. But I know you've, Coley quite rightly was defending his players, and I don't expect him to do anything else. And he said quite rightly, it was on Radio Lanks, I still thought it was a sending off. But then his player will do it next week, and he'll say it isn't a sending off, because that's just the nature of Coley, because he defends his players. And so I get that. I think, just personally, I think he jumped for the ball. I've seen him given. I've seen him got away with. It's happened to us. We had a situation in our promotion season where Alex Kenyon got kung fu kicked in the head, and the guy didn't. The guy got.
Oh yeah, was that against Mansfield?
Yeah, the guy got a yellow card.
Yeah, that was.
It was like 6 feet off the ground, and it was like, I just don't get it. Whereas
I think I've still got a screenshot of that.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, it was like kung fu fighting. It was like some Bruce Lee move. But anyway, you can go on about that all you want. The point being is, I think the big point was it was two pretty poor sides until that sending off, and it wasn't a great game. I actually thought we were possibly I haven't seen it again, but possibly denied a penalty when there was a sandwich on. I don't know if it was it Ryan Cooney or Dylan running into the box, sort of at 3-1. And I thought he was sandwiched, and I thought, well, they've stopped him there. Now, one of them did get the ball as he was falling, but I thought that was a pen, but obviously we didn't get it. But not that it made much difference. So yeah, clutching at straws. But the thing that concerns me about the whole thing was that game wasn't necessarily, it was there for the taking. And as per usual, the sending off changed it. And that's the sort of like point that we've got to take forward, isn't it? We need a bit of luck like that for us rather than against us, I think, Joel.
Yeah, I think it was set up to be taken by either team, in fairness. We weren't offering a great deal, and Accrington could have upped the ante. There was room for them to grow into the game as well. I mean, you look back at it, I think there's been a bit said about the selection choice. I didn't really have too much of a problem with it, to be honest. I think with Shaw being injured, I get why he wants to put Gibson in midfield, because Gibson offers that little bit extra of kind of extra ability on the ball. He's very good at handling it in tight spaces.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the logic of why he's been coming in as an auxiliary defensive midfielder. Badeau at left back, you know what? He's we all know that one of Jacob Badeau's best assets is his mobility, his ability to deal with one-on-one duels, and obviously he's a central defender, so he has got some kind of ability in the air as well, and that's quite handy against Accrington. Just having more people who are decent at heading a ball, because that's what they're going to do. And I think the formation changed as well to a back four with wingers. Accrington, a lot of their creativity is going to come from Wally and McConville on the wings.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and if we were playing a back three, then we're potentially leaving our wing backs quite exposed against them. Whereas with the back four, we can bring our wingers back and defend against it. Jake Taylor was the one who ended up on the right wing. Obviously, we had Connolly on the bench. At the same time, I think this is probably a reason why Derek has been reluctant to use a back four as much recently with wingers, is because we've only had two wingers available for the past few weeks. We've only had Nahua and Connolly, and
now we've only got
great.
one.
I know we've only got one now as well, so it'd be great starting with them both at the same time. If one gets injured, we want to just revamp the game up a little bit. One gets tired, one's having a bit of an off day. There's nowhere for us to go from our bench. There's no extra level we can take it to, or no kind of direct replacement for the wing. So I get why he kind of wanted to move Taylor out there and just have Connolly as an option off the bench. It's not worked out in the end, but that's kind of more down to the red card. I don't really think it's much to do with his tactical selections for that game. I think with injuries, his hands were kind of forced, and I think he did the right thing in the formation to deal with Accrington. But yeah, the red card, it changed the game.
And I'll move on to that later on, because obviously we'll talk to Rod about the situation, both sort of like, not necessarily tactically, but particularly injury wise. But we'll chat a little bit. Ipswich at home on Saturday. What can possibly go wrong? 3 points, surely.
Yeah, very easy. Nice second in the league, a point off top. I think they are. Just it doesn't rain, it pours, and with Arthur being sent off with the injuries, we saw them at the back end. Well, not kind of just it was Derek's first game, of course, wasn't it?
It was.
I remember I was so impressed with them that game. Obviously, they've had Kieran McKenna in. He's obviously shown himself to be a very, very, very capable coach. He's had a few months to bed in and work out who in that squad he was going to be up to the task of being in his team. And he's had a summer when he's been very, very well backed. Obviously, they've signed Leif Davis, who we're all familiar with, meant to be in the region of about £1 million. So he's had a lot of money to play with to shape the squad how he wants it.
They're just having to make more ex-Morecambe left backs, aren't they?
I know, yeah. Unfortunately, Greg Lee's he's injured for this one. He's got some kind of compound fracture in his leg. Which is
he's broken a nail.
He was meant to be playing for Jamaica against Argentina. So he was meant to be marking Messi, but he got injured just before that. So I do feel a bit bad for him there. But
he'd have ended up tied in knots anyway. So.
Nah, Greg Lee would have had him on. Had him in his back pocket. I don't know what you're on about, but I think
that's right.
Easy, no problem. He's probably a bit quicker, to be fair, Greg Lee. He's probably quite a lot quicker than Messi, but and stronger, and but like
taller.
Obviously and taller. Yeah, exactly. He could literally put him in his back pocket. In fairness, but I think I was looking at some of the numbers about Ipswich. They've got the highest chances created from open play in the league. They've got the second lowest chances conceded, well, XG conceded in the league, highest XG created in the league from open play. So
You're not selling this to me.
yeah, they're pretty damn good. But however, we've got quite a lot of injuries.
No, have we?
Have we? I personally think we should just boot it in the air as much as possible because they can't play their nice football if the ball's always in the air. But anyway, that's just me.
Yeah, particularly if you stick it over the stand.
Yeah.
Joel, you're not talking hoofball, are you, by any chance? My
Yes.
God.
I want to see hoofball. I want it to be brutal. I'd like Ipswich fans to be travelling back down to Suffolk complaining that they've seen a war crime against football. Just anything to win the game.
So basically a Suffolk punch.
Oh,
Oh my God.
against the Tractor Boys. Well done, Rod.
Number one for the day.
Well done, getting that in. So they've sold 1,000 tickets, but we're still selling, according to the club, we're still selling tickets on the date in the Ipswich end, which is great. So they're bringing loads, which is fantastic. They were really well behaved last season. They were very welcome visitors, weren't they? And we somehow managed to scab a draw. And I'd take that again now, Rod. But yeah, what can possibly go wrong? Well, the injury situation. Obviously, we know about Max Melbourne and Ash Hunter, and obviously Courtney Doofus. But like Arthur being suspended, nightmare. Jake Taylor picking something up. Liam Shaw picking something up. And then obviously the really, really sad sight that for John Obika, his father passed away, and he's back, quite rightly, back at his dad's funeral in Nigeria. So we've got 16 fit players. Bring your boots Saturday, Joel. You're playing again, are you?
Yeah, I am there. So yeah, I was on the first five-a-side game the other week. So Derek, you know where I am.
I mean, there's nothing you can do, Rod. It's pointless moaning about it. You just got to get on with it, haven't you?
You've got to plough through it, Freeze, and that's the bottom line. There's so much on social media these days, and I've said this before to you. At one time, we'd debate football. We'd have a few pints in the pub on a Saturday night or on a Sunday lunchtime. Great. Now it's out there, right in your face, and I think a little bit unjust at times. I think there needs to be a little bit of a reality check, and I'm not harking back. I'm not talking about where we've come from and all that. I'm talking about right now and what we're going through. And the injury, to be fair, it is an injury crisis. It's massive. A lot of those players that you've just mentioned would be figuring right now. So, I think
I haven't mentioned Caleb Watts.
No, exactly.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Caleb Watts and Ash Hunter probably are two wild cards that everybody will be thinking, oh, what are they going to give us? And even we don't know, do we, to be honest?
Yeah, exactly. No, difficult. I mean, Ipswich Town, they're a lovely club. Seriously, they're a very friendly club. The fans are fabulous. And there's a great quote, which you've probably heard many times before, when Mr. Cobbold was the chairman down at Ipswich, and he's famously quoted as saying, crisis. What crisis? The only crisis we have at Ipswich is when we run out of wine in the boardroom. And that's back in Bobby Robson's time, and I think they are a very genteel, wholesome club, and the decent people.
Yeah, so it's going to be quite sorry that we're going to have to take 3 points off them by kicking them to death and playing long ball all the game. But I know it's needs must. We're in a battle for survival, and
Absolutely,
it's one of them things, isn't it? I mean, I don't. We're getting to that stage now where we're nailed to the bottom, and if we've got to stay in touch, we've got to start getting results by whatever means. And if we have to turn into horrible, then we have to turn into horrible. Now, I don't know if Derek will do that, but the last 20 minutes at Accrington, when we went 4-3-2 and put 2 up front, we were horrible. It was great because we had Cooney and Stockton doing his thing, and Cooney was diving into tackles, and I was like, you can't knock the commitment. You can't. We were down to 10 men and we gave it a go. It didn't work, but that's the way it is. That's what I want to see.
David, I've seen things this week on social media. I mean, statements like he's lost the dressing room, the lads aren't there. It's an absolute load of rubbish. I'll tell you that 100%. They're a unit, they work as a unit, they play as a unit, and and the environment they're working in is a very positive environment. So I think that one should be absolutely put to bed.
And I think obviously Connor, as club captain, came out of the post-match interviews at Accrington, and he said a lot of home truths, didn't he? Saying it wasn't good enough, etc., etc. And he's right, and it came from the heart. I know he's only been here. I know he's only been here since the start of the season, but it obviously means a lot to him. And
no, he's a big character. He's a big character, though, David. And I think there's nothing wrong with doing that, but there's no underlying features there to say the split or the not with the manager or whatever. That is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and so moving on, and this sort of, the questions that I want to ask. I'm going to put my glasses on now. Obviously, you're on Radio Lancs, and that's available for people to hear if they go onto the. You can hear it on the red button on BBC Sounds on Radio Lancs Sport. Obviously, we've spoken about the injuries and John Beaker and Arthur's red card, but obviously, from our point of view, when the word people are reacting because of probably what Derek said in his interview with Tim Padfield on Tuesday, where he's come out and said, "Oh, we've had to put up with a lot going on behind the scenes and etc. etc." Now, I'm interpreting, well, John Beaker going to Nigeria and Arthur, obviously the red card, etc., and all the injuries. People are putting two and two together and making different conclusions to that, Rod. Now, personally, I've said to my sort of group my group on WhatsApp, Derek's, and I'll let Joel take credit for this because he's from Derek's from the Alex Ferguson School of Football, where he's all smoke and mirrors, is Derek, when things are going wrong, and he's got a history of doing it. He did it at Bradford last year. He did it in our promotion season. He even did it. He did it a couple of times when we were staring down the abyss when he first took over, and it was a lot of, psychology and smoke and mirrors. And I know you said he obviously did it. He did it during the international break last season, didn't he, Joel?
Yeah, obviously there was his remark about the team compared to his promotion side, and managers say things in interviews. Obviously, we've spoken about Ferguson. When there's that countless ones you can name off for him, going into a press conferences and telling a load of journalists that I can't remember what the exact quote was, but because they didn't think Juan Sebastian Veron was very good, so he told them all that they don't know fucking anything about football.
Yeah.
And I remember I remember chatting to the a couple of guys at Sheffield Wednesday. There's one when Carlos Carvajal apparently pulled out a £20 note in a press conference, pummeled it on the desk, and was trying to make a point about the fact that it's still worth £20 when people have criticised some of the more elderly players. Yeah. The point being, managers will say all sorts of things in their interviews and press conferences. Sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded way of saying it, but they'll say all sorts of things, and sometimes they want to get a point across. It's always worth taking it with a pinch of salt. I like Derek a lot as a manager. With any manager, I'll always take sometimes what they have to say in the press. You listen to it, you take it on board, but sometimes I personally always think take it with a little pinch of salt.
So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Rod, but that's if you look at what Derek said, is it just the fact that there's all the injuries? John Beaker's gone off to a funeral, Farney's leaving, and obviously we've all got the Worcester Warriors, which I'll come to, thing hanging over us. Is it just that, or is there more going on behind the scenes?
No, I think it's an accumulation. It's a big jigsaw, as I said on the radio before, David. It's not just, and things can be so easily misinterpreted. So, he said it's been the worst month of his managerial career, but there's a lot happened in that month. It's not just the ownership. It is injuries. It is personnel. It is X, Y, and Z. It is defeats. So, what do you expect? Do we expect him to be, happy and jumping for joy? He's a human being. He's got a job to do. And you don't know what, in an interview, you don't know what a journalist is going to throw at you. And I think the questions were fair. And I think his answers were quite reasonable in the situation.
Yeah, he was. I'm hoping that he will write the book that he's threatening to, because it would be quite interesting. But so moving on, the big question, obviously we're in the press a lot at the moment. the Guardian today was particularly scathing, mentioned us twice in their little, well, it was a large piece about Worcester Warriors and the actual, you know, and I have to say I've got an enormous amount of sympathy with any sporting team that's put through the crap that they're going through, because it must be, you know, like the Berry thing and everybody, you know, and obviously, you know, teams in the past, Aldershot when they went bust, etc., etc. It must be horrific, but yet again we're down to, you know, fit and proper test, which the EFL says we're okay, but you know, people are doubting that now, because the simple fact is, obviously, we've only got you know, the owner or owners of Worcester Warriors are indelibly linked with us, because they are still our owners, even though they are no longer board members. And I know you've already said this, but that's as far as it goes. That's as far as their involvement, isn't it? As owners, not board members.
Yeah, the only common factor is that we've got common ownership, and that's it. Yeah. No more, no less. We don't owe Worcester Warriors a penny. There is some outstanding debt, but it's minimal to Bond Group Investments Limited. But other than that, there is no, unless something comes out of the woodwork that I don't know about or my colleagues don't know about, there is nothing else that can particularly harm Morecambe Football Club.
And from that point of view, like I say, it doesn't help. The situations are, obviously, it was mentioned in the Guardian article that we are up for sale, which obviously, again, is common knowledge, but it's something else that Derek alluded to, in the fact that you probably do look to the future. I mean, you know, if Joel's company that he works for was put up for sale, you'd be thinking about your job. I wonder what the changes are going to affect me. It's human nature, that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And from a football manager's perspective, you could get new owners coming in. We don't know at this stage who or what they may be. But you must look over your shoulder and think, well, where would that leave me at whatever level? And basically, it doesn't matter where you are in the league table either, because we've seen that pretty recently with clubs sort of 5th, 6th, 7th in the relative league table, you know, parting company with managers. So yeah, I understand where Derek's coming from. As a board, and as I said on Radio Lancashire earlier on, we are meeting with the owner over the next few days. We need to do that. We need to know where we are. We need to know, and when I say we, I mean the football club. We need to know their thought process and what they are hoping to achieve. We need to know the type of individual or individuals that are looking to purchase a football club, because they're not the most attractive business ventures, are they? Football. It's not. As John Medeski said at Reading, you can make a small fortune out of football if you
have to start with a large one.
Yeah. And he's not wrong. And ultimately, what we want to do at Morecambe, and I'm sure you can speak of a large percentage of football clubs at our level, unless you've got real, you know, gilt-edged sugar daddy owners, you want to strive to break even. That's got to be the aim of it. And as Derek rightly said today, player transfers, cup runs, you know, football fortune, that's what you strive to do. You never set off with the budget with those numbers in, because that would be foolhardy. You can't do that. So you've got to look at every available means of income. And it's, especially in the climate we're in, it's tough.
Yeah, I'll wager it is actually. Obviously, we know being in League One for the second season that the definitive honeymoon period's definitely over. But
absolutely, yeah.
Thankfully, from that point of view, record sales in the season tickets, and crowds are holding up, and it'll be hopefully another decent one when we tonk Ipswich to death with aerial dominance. Just in case Derek listens. So you never know, do you? But I mean, from that point of view, and again, people have been making the point, and I do make the point because I do listen to what people say, and look, taking a sort of like straw poll of what's going on like Facecloth and Twitter and etc. In the fact that we are set up now with the infrastructure for League One, and what's concerning some people is we've got people in key positions, lots of people doing jobs that didn't used to exist when we were in the conference and in League Two. How these people now? Where do they stand if we end up getting relegated to League Two? Do we revert back to the sort of the skeleton staff? Do we run a tighter ship with less people, or what happens? We've got to consider all this. This is people's livelihoods, isn't it?
David, absolutely. And as you progress, you cannot. We could not have continued to run as we were, because some of us would have been ground into the ground, basically.
Yeah.
And we have developed. Ben Sadler has developed the infrastructure massively, and fair play to him. From a lot of points of view, from HR to safeguarding to commercial, on and on and on it goes. And yeah, relegation would be a massive drop in income just by central funding from the EFL. So you try to protect that, but you've got to again look at every possible means of bringing income in, whatever that might be. We're not crystal ball gazers. We can't do that. Who knows where we're going to be when we start when we get to the start of May? I don't know. And a lot can happen between now and the transfer window. I mean, we've touched on the transfer window, and Mick Horton and I sat with Derek and we've said, look, plan for what your needs are in that window, because without a plan, you're going to fail. I don't mean him individual, I mean anybody. So you've got to plan as if we're in that position. Now, money might be tight from a budgetary point of view. We've set the budget, that's it. We haven't got loads of money to throw about. We have invested in certain areas of the club, be that the players' budget, be that the ground staff. We've got 2 full-time and an apprentice now. We've invested in plant and materials for the ground staff, both at the Mazuma and at the training ground. But we cannot ignore that. We've got to do that. We've got to push it and try and progress it. So to a degree, it is crystal ball gazing, but we are realistic and we will adjust as we go along. We're not going to put the club in major jeopardy. And I've said, and I might have said this before this evening, whether you're an owner, a director, or whatever role you play in that situation, we're custodians. And I really do believe this, that nobody owns a football club. That is, I am repeating, so it is the community asset, absolutely within a shadow of a doubt. And it impacts on people. If things aren't going right, there must be distraught people down in Worcester today, just as there were at Bury, just as there were at Macclesfield. And that is a real impact on those individuals. And whatever situation any sporting club's in, I really do feel for them. We've got to look after Morecambe Football Club right now, collectively, everybody together on Saturday afternoon. Every single person in that stadium that's a Shrimp supporter should be absolutely behind the team and the manager. It goes without saying for me.
Well, he's like I say, I don't think there's going to be much moaning about the team selection, because it's looking to me like it's picking itself, Joel, isn't it, really?
Yeah, there isn't really much room to kind of manoeuvre, really. I wouldn't be surprised to see the likes of some of the youngsters we've seen already this season. Wouldn't be surprised to see them back on the bench, because there just aren't many options. I think, like, to echo what Rod said, really, like we've got to get behind the team. I think, especially with just kind of focusing on on-pitch stuff, we've got such a big injury crisis at the moment. I'm always an advocate of trying to build good performances and then let the results come from that. But at the moment, we're decimated as a squad. All that matters is just grinding out some kind of result at the moment. And I think, as we've seen over the past couple of seasons, having a big feverish home atmosphere can be quite important to that. It's a compact little ground. It's relatively full, and when the whole ground are behind the players, it's a great racket, and I imagine a real boost for the players. So I think, yeah, just to reiterate what Rod has said, really, get behind the team. Derek's not going to have much room to manoeuvre in terms of formation, so I don't think we can have too many complaints about what it might be come Saturday. And we've just got to get behind them and try and, with the players, make it as difficult and horrible for Ipswich as we possibly can.
Joel, it's developing or exhibiting for me that siege mentality, and sometimes you have to do that. We were there, weren't we, 4 years ago? We had to develop that siege mentality in those crazy times of when Peter went and Diego Lemos and Joseph Carlo were around, and whether that be your league position, things going on behind the scenes, the unrest because of the ownership situation. Well, right now, let's galvanize everybody in. We should be absolutely together. I was going to say to a man, but to a person now, and that is important. So I think that's the starting point on Saturday. Let's absolutely 100% get behind, make a noise, and make our presence felt. And absolutely, I know it's a cliche, but let's be that 12th man. We've got to make it count.
So the final sort of interjection from me, and this has come from me listening to you on Radio Lancashire, is that it sort of came across that obviously the board are not really. I mean, you're going to meet with the owner, but you're not really in charge of the selling process because it's not yours to sell. So you're sort of kind of almost in charge but powerless. So you're in a position of extreme high intensity without the power to do anything about it, because you're the custodians looking after it day to day, and they're the ones making the decisions about who to sell to and whatever. And what came across was that you're just sort of like hoping, yes, you might be consulted and say, is that a decent and effective person to take the club over? Could it be the situation that, I mean, there's plenty of rumours flying about, and I don't need to mention names because people have been mentioning names of local business then to me locally over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks even. It was like, oh, worst kept secret. It was all over the Berlin Wall and blah, blah, blah. But if it was a local business who came in and bought it, would you guys still be involved, or would he want rid of you? You don't know, do you?
I haven't a clue.
And
honestly, David, you know,
therein lies the problem.
The gift of the sale is within the ownership, as with anything. Now we can try and influence that. We can try and vet that. We can bring our opinions to bear. But at the end of the day, that is down to the owner, and that's the real world. If somebody wants to step up, and if there's anybody out there locally who wants to step up, absolutely brilliant. We've brought the club, as you know, David and Joel, we've developed the club massively over the past few years, but you can't keep harking back. I get that. We want to ensure that Morecambe Football Club is on a sound basis going forward, whatever that is. But ultimately, Jason Whittingham will decide who he sells to and at what price he sells to.
And that's
the real world.
Yeah,
that's the real world.
And that's the worrying bit, because I from my point of view, you just don't know, do you? I mean, I'd like it to be a situation. I did actually win the lottery on Tuesday, but it was only £3.80.
I think you can counter that though with, it's worrying, but it's the same for any club that's going for sale. Surely, regardless of whether you're in the Championship and in League One, League Two, National League, you don't know who's going to come in. Obviously, say when you had the sale of Oldham recently, from their previous owner, who nobody was a fan of, who knew who he was going to sell to. In the end, it's worked out quite nicely, and that a local businessman has come in, and that's great. That's worked out for the best. But I think concern is inevitable, but like I think at the end of the day, like it's always going to be an inevitability when the club goes up for sale because we don't obviously know who's going to own it yet. But I think we just have to trust and hope. And if Rod and the other board members are able to have a bit of an influence on that, that would be great. But obviously, like Rod says, it's down to Jason, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, you would hope that whoever comes in recognises what, you know, the current board have done. Jason, Colin haven't been hands-on owners. They've let us get on with it. And Morecambe's a little bit, it is a bit special, I think, in as much as, and historically, David, you know, right now on the board of directors, you've got four individuals there who are Morecambe fans and have been Morecambe fans all their lives. We've got two other people with great expertise that we call upon, and it's a good mix and it's a committed mix. Now, I'm not sure anywhere within the Football League you would find a board as support based as what we are. I just don't think it's there. So, and it's tough at times because you've got to leave your emotion at that boardroom door. You've got to do that, because if you're controlled by your heart rather than your head, it ain't going to work, because ultimately it is a business. And that's some of the tough things that I've learned over the past 30 years. It's not easy.
And leading on from that, I suppose the only positive that I can sort of think of in the fact that we are up for sale again, just 4 short years after we were taken over. We're in a completely different division. Crowds are at least triple of what they were.
Yeah.
And I know you said we're, you know, if we look at your accounts, we might not be completely debt free, but we're certainly in a better position. Is that right?
No, yeah. To where it was 4 years ago, the debt is absolutely minuscule. Seriously, you know, going back, we had a massive overdraft at the bank. We don't have that now, and I'm in a massive overdraft. So from a financial point of view, from a balance sheet point of view, we're in a far better position. Cash flow is always difficult, isn't it? But you've got to manage that in a business. In any business, you've got to manage that situation. You get good times, you get pinch points. So, and with you know, the situation we've all been through over the past 2.5 years as well. So, yeah, it's a simpler sale now. It's a lot. The football club, in essence, is in a lot better position than it was when Peter sold. No doubt about it.
And hopefully we are, because of being in League One, more people have heard of us. You would hope, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're massive now.
Exactly. We're not little old Morecambe anymore. We're massive Morecambe, and we're going to absolutely swamp Ipswich on Saturday. Joel, have you got anything you want to ask Rod?
No, that's kind of covered it all, really. I think just.
Oh, I'm sorry, have I ruined it there? Then?
Oh no, I think that no, don't worry. I'll get over it. But
I can't believe I've done that. I just wrote stuff down, thinking, people.
No, it was nice to have quite an open discussion on that one, really. But I think just things to mention from the trust, really. Again, any volunteers who got any kind of projects or ways they think that they can help, come forward. Membership participation is obviously a really massive point for the trust, and it's what keeps us going. We've sent out we put some stuff on social media about this already, but we are looking for people helping out on the social media side of things. I think we're probably going to give it a few more, another week or so, let a few people kind of get in touch if they want to help out. We've already had quite a few people get in touch. So if it is something you're interested in, just get in touch via email, chat to one of us, and we'll see what kind of stuff we've got going for that. And finally, just any kind of, obviously there's a prize draw that we have at the trust. We at the moment we're in the process of getting some new partners and businesses sort of with that. So any more businesses that want to get in touch and do some kind of partnership stuff for the prize draw, do get in touch.
Jimmy Gilden will be looking after that, no doubt.
Yeah, I think he's the one looking after that.
He tries to give it up every season and he ends up doing it, bless him.
Oh, Jimmy,
yeah.
He turned up at my house last Sunday on his bike with my £20 boardwalk voucher. and then he's cycling to Holton. My God.
Oh, he's top lad.
Absolute trooper. So yeah, as always, anything you want to ask us about or get in touch and help us about the trust, just get in touch.
So I will again point people towards Rod's been on with us today. He has been on Radio Lancs, and it was a quite all-encompassing 2-part interview, which obviously you two didn't realise they'd split it into 2 parts and missed the end bit, where Rod admitted these top 5 favourite albums and he wears French knickers on a Sunday. But I mean, all these things happen. So,
Friday, David, Friday.
Is it Friday? Oh, sorry, I got the day wrong. So I point you in the direction of BBC Sounds and the Radio Lancs Sporting Hour, which takes place on a Thursday 6 till 7, and it was well worth listening to. And on the back of that, I asked Rod to come on the podcast this morning, because obviously we normally have a board member on, and James and Charlie were both a bit sort of, I'm busy. And I was like, yeah, I'll bet you are. But so thanks for coming on, Rod. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for your honesty as always. There will always be people out there who want to know more than you can actually tell them, but that's inevitable in particularly when Derek's alluding to writing a chapter in his book about what's gone on. We'll find out at some point, but we might all be laughing about this. We could be in a situation where we have new owners in place and there could be funds for Derek to sign 2 or 3 in January, and lo and behold, we survive. You just don't know. That's football. We thought we were doomed sort of like 3 seasons ago when we were second bottom when Derek took over and we couldn't buy a win, and look where we are now. But
all going to Coventry, Freeze.
Exactly.
Or even last season, after that week, the Cheltenham and Wigan Tuesday week.
David, can I make a couple of points? Is that okay?
Of course you can.
I mean, I've tried to be both here and on the radio as transparent as I can, but as you rightly say, I've got to be guarded in some areas because there are some sensitive issues. Moving on.
That's the French knickers. Sorry, I said that now. So.
Moving on from that, you mentioned you watch. You mentioned you record and watch the Football League program with your lad on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is the Betamax?
Yeah, I do deliberately say record, because I actually said tape it to Callum, and Callum goes, it's not tape. And I said, exactly. I know, it annoys him. So that's why I say it. So I tape it.
Yeah, so we all do. So moving on from that, I would like to encourage people to use the coach travel because it has been a difficult one. If people don't subscribe, we cannot afford, and I think James alluded to this last week, we cannot afford to lose money on it. So I would really encourage people to, and look, I fully understand the other forms of transport, sardines, terrace travel, all the rest, and respect that. I have no issues at all. But if you're not going by that means, or you don't want to go by car or by train, try and use the club's transport that's supported by the trust, because we want to keep that going as long as we can, but it must be supported.
I'm just going to ask you something here, and this is completely off the cuff, off the top of my head. As a member of the trust, I did use the trust coaches, but as a trust member, you got discount. Is there any way that could be applied to the pricing of the club coaches, that if you were a trust member it was cheaper, so therefore they're actually getting something for the membership? Because that was the way it worked, wasn't it, Joel?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is that there's differences in running costs. I think we were fortunate at the trust to have somebody like Rob who was driving it down for free, and that saved us a lot of money, and that gave us flexibility to be able to kind of offer those discounts. I think off the top of my head, don't quote me on this, I think there might have been some kind of GDPR issues as well, sharing data between different entities and things like that. I mean, it has been discussed, but as of present, I'm not sure if it's entirely possible. But obviously, you know, it's an idea. We can look at discussing it again, but I can't make any guarantees, I don't think.
I'm just throwing it out there on the table because I know I travelled with him a couple of times. The fateful night to Shrewsbury, where we where we had the massive halftime row, which which manifested itself in a fantastic second half performance, if I remember. Oh no, hang on.
David, final point from me anyway. Very disappointed last Saturday at Accrington. I took a call from their managing director on Sunday morning to be informed that Morecambe, or some Morecambe supporters had vandalised the toilets.
Oh,
now,
no. What, the seating or the away end?
No, the open end.
Right.
It happened just before half time. The cistern pipe was pulled off. The toilet seat was damaged. The water heater was damaged. The place was flooded. That's not us, David. That is not Morecambe Football Club.
No, it's not. You're right.
And I'll point you to my programme notes tomorrow, and I've raised it in there because for me, this is not acceptable. And if things like this happen and they can be proven, I'm sorry, there will be lifetime bans, and with no choice, because that is not what we're all about. And you and Joel know that, and it's really disappointing. I had to say to David, look, send us the invoice. We can't do anything else. I don't want to be wasting money like that. We don't want to be wasting money like that. But end of, it's not acceptable, and very, very disappointing.
Well, I mean, you know, spread it. I mean, you've probably written your notes already, but spread it far and wide. There's lots of people listening to this, and I think that's it doesn't reflect well on the club. And if the club are footing the bill, then the idiots who are doing this are costing the club money where they could be spending it in other areas, which is, to me, it's that's not right.
And David, I've got to look at the Aki situation, because, you know, again, on social media, they were getting some stick about it being a SHYT hole and all this. I don't agree at all. That club, with a lot of similarities to us, they've worked hard, they've developed a very functional facility, they've improved it. All right, it's an open away end. So is Gillingham after 15 years, for God's sake.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The bar facility is absolutely superb, and they welcomed our supporters. All right, there came a time when it was full. I get that, but we walked through it on Saturday. I spoke to some of our guys. It's a great facility. I take my hat off to them, but you know, let's not be knocking somebody for doing a great job for their own community. It's not Morecambe Football Club, that, and I really need to emphasize that point from where I'm sat.
Like, I went on record. I was on Twitter about a month ago saying I've never met an Aki fan that he couldn't have a pint with, and I stand by that. In the fact that when we were in the Crown pub on Saturday, and I was chatting to them, and they're exactly the same as us. We're just 25 miles apart, and we're absolutely no different. We've come from Lancashire Combination, Northern Premier League, Conference, League Two, League One. They've got nice new changing rooms. They've done a load to the ground. When that ground was first built, the stand that I sat in the other day wasn't there. The home end wasn't covered. There was a tiny little scratching shed at the side, and the other end was uncovered. So that's the first time I ever went there.
And you know what they've done? You know what they've done, David? They've done it that takes account of all the people that attend that stadium. And again, I've made the point in my notes for Saturday. It's not just corporate. It's open for everyone that attends a football match at the WAM Stadium. It's welcoming. It's right. It's not a big ego trip. It's for everybody to go and enjoy the day. And I really do take my hat off to them.
Yeah, and it always tickles me that it's called the George Michael Arena, but there you go. You can't win them all.
It's still the crown ground to me.
I don't really exactly, but I mean, people might say, "Oh, Freeze is going off on the loving and what have you." I don't.
No.
I've no truck with the people who say, "Oh, and I told this story not that long ago, in the fact that we were walking, trying to get from the away end up the stairs because we'd parked near the Crown pub, and as we were going up the stairs, there was like a load of Aki fans saying, "We ain't Morecambe, we ain't Morecambe." And three of us turned around and went, "No, you don't." And they went, "No, you're right, we don't. Are you coming for a pint?"
Yeah.
And that's just it. We're exactly the same as they are. We've come from the same place. And when all said and done, we're not a million miles apart. So, I've got plenty of other teams I can't stand. And I can't stand losing to Accrington above it all. But,
Absolutely.
But ultimately, that's just about the 90 minutes, isn't it? The rest of it, off the pitch, Andy Holt's done an absolutely fantastic job there. And if anything, it's credit to him, and we should be looking to do something similar.
Totally agree. And he's done it for the right reasons.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. So, yeah, thanks for listening to this. This was episode 10. I think we've probably nearly got to an hour, even with three of us wobbling on. And obviously, tune in next week when mine and Joel's fantastic We've Turned Into the Cambridge United under John Beck, and knocked it long and absolutely smashed Ipswich Town out of the park 1-0 with 5% possession.
Graham Taylor's Watford.
I'd better get on the phone and order some stand freeze for the wings.
Yeah, I don't care how it happens. I really don't care how it happens. We need a result Saturday, and a result that's positive, whether it be a draw or a win. I sincerely hope so. This has been ShrimpNet, episode 10. Thank you for listening. Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Joel. Keep the faith. We'll see you next week.